Hello guys and welcome here to another edition of Out of Turn 4, and it is our final edition before our Olympic break here. Of course, we'll talk more on that in just a little bit, but coming up on the show, we're going to discuss NASCAR at New Hampshire, SRX at Fairgrounds, the latest silly season news, and we got a bombshell. You don't want to miss this. And then, of course, um, we'll talk about what's going to happen here on over the next couple of weeks. So with that, let's get going. Let's start off with NASCAR at Loudon. Christopher Bell continues his undefeated run at Loudon in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He gets his 17th career win. Those darn Cup drivers, I'm telling you, it's no matter who they put in the 54, they're going to win. That's just my opinion now. But that's all I got on that. I want to try to fly through the Loudon recap just because we got a lot of news to get to. So, and also I didn't watch that race, so I really don't have much comments on it. Eric Almirola, he won his third career race at Loudon. Score one for the good guys. It's first win in 98 races. Yes, you heard me right. It's been 98 races since Eric Almirola has last won in a NASCAR Cup car. So, of course, early on, the caution was thrown on lap 3 for a wreck with Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. It was due to the rain. NASCAR should accept blame for this, for sure. There's no doubt that they had messed up the days of so many because of that. Truex's day was kind of ruined. Kyle Busch, of course, per usual, put up a very Kyle Busch-like interview where he was whining, but today he was right, or Sunday he was right. He had every right to complain about that. It was a terrible call by NASCAR to not red flag the race to start and rather just decide to race through it. It was a terrible decision. So, for that, I can't fault Kyle for being upset. Sorry about that. I can't fault him for being upset there. That's the one time I can't fault him for being upset, to say the least. So, but Almirola was clearly the best guy late. Of course, the race. So NASCAR teams were told when they got back underway, if darkness does become an issue, they will give the race 10 laps to go with no overtimes. So they did do that. With 19 to go, they downed it, or they lowered it to 10 to go. And that's how Almirola won, although he was chased by Christopher Bell. So it's unfortunate for Christopher, because I think if he had those full 19 laps, he was going to win that race. But nonetheless, congratulations to Eric Almirola. I watched Jet Krause. He had said this was the best New Hampshire race he's ever seen. Based on everything I've seen, I can agree with that. I think, finally the track is coming into its own, and I think it provided some excellent racing on Sunday. So now on to the SRX at Fairgrounds. Chase Elliott has won the main event. My boy, he won the main event at Fairgrounds, and of course he had mentioned, this is why Fairgrounds should host a NASCAR Cup event. I surely hope Fairgrounds will consider it. I surely hope NASCAR will consider it in the future. But Tony Stewart, he won the first championship in SRX. And ultimately, I think it was a great year. There were some rules I was a little against at first, but I think ultimately it provided some great racing. Outside of Paul Tracy, it's been a great series. So that's all I got to say on that. As far as guys who I think should drive in a second season of SRX, I'd love to see Ryan Newman do it, now that I think of it. Ryan Newman versus Paul Tracy, this could be fun. No, but I think Paul Tracy needs out of that series. I don't think he's that good over there. I'd love to see Hailie Deegan run the full season over there. I don't know if NASCAR will allow her, so we'll of course have to monitor that. Man, I had so many drivers I had listed. I mean, Mark Martin would be a nice one too. Bring back some of the older NASCAR guys. really, that's about it. That's all I can think of right now. I mean, Ryan Newman definitely would be the one at the top of that list. Of course, we'll talk more about Ryan Newman in a few minutes. Of course, keep in mind we're recording, it's actually just past midnight on Tuesday morning. So, yeah. So I don't know any of the news that happened at Roush. So, I know Roush had a press announcement earlier today. It's earlier before the premiere. So, unfortunately, I don't have that news for you. But anyway, now we're on to the big story. Wow, is all I can say. So, this first part I saw coming. I'm not going to lie to you, I saw it coming. Martin Truex Jr., not Martin Truex Jr., oh my goodness. Austin Cindric is going to drive for Team Penske in the number 2 car. This is news I saw coming. I don't think this was a shocker, to say the least. Obviously, I believe Brad Keselowski is going to Roush Fenway Racing to become the co-owner and the driver over there. So with that, obviously, it made sense Cindric goes over there. And Cindric 100% has earned his right to drive in the Cup Series at Team Penske. He's earned that right over the last 2 seasons. There's not been an Xfinity Series regular who's been better than Austin Cindric that's not currently in the Cup Series. Yes, I'm pointing to Chase Briscoe. There's just not been a guy this season that's been better than him. So it's well earned. And, I could say Silver Spoon Kid about him because his dad is Tim Cindric, the president of Team Penske. But at the end of the day, you can call him a Silver Spoon Kid, but he's won races, he's won championships. Quite frankly, I don't think he's going to have any contest for winning his second Xfinity Series championship. I'm just throwing that out there. But with that, of course, came the biggest news. Now, here's the thing. When I kind of had a feeling with this whole Roush ordeal, I figured for sure, I'm like, Matty D's going to end up staying at the Wood Brothers. I just don't foresee anybody in the Ford camp that was going to replace him. Then came the bombshell. Harrison Burton from Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program is going up to the Cup Series to race in the number 21 for the Wood Brothers. That has to be, and probably will go down as, the biggest bombshell this offseason. Unless something else shocking comes up. But for now, of the things that we knew and didn't know, this was the most shocking. And the one that I think nobody knew. And Team Penske, I got to applaud them. They kept that secret really well. As for this, Harrison won 4 races last year, I believe. But he hasn't won anything this year. And he's been, I wouldn't say like Noah Gragson, but he's been about the same. In that he's putting up results, but he's not getting wins. Although he hasn't had the bad luck that Noah Gragson has had. Not for nothing, I predicted, if you go back to SCN on that channel, I believe I predicted over there. I said Harrison Burton is going to have a breakout season in 2021. Book it. He's going to be the one challenging Austin Cindric. I was dead set on that. I'd even said it behind closed doors. He did not meet that expectation this season so far. And to be honest, I think if we're going to compare to Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, I just don't know if he's Cup ready. I mean, here's the thing. I say the same about Justin Haley. And Justin Haley's won a Cup race. Granted, it was in the rain, but still, he won. That's all that matters. that's why I just don't know about this move. I just think it's too soon for Harrison Burton. And I feel like I mean, if you're going to have a guy who's running second and third every single week, you might as well keep Matt DiBenedetto. Sorry, Matty. But I think, for a guy who's running average in the Xfinity Series to make a leap, it's kind of questionable. Kind of questionable. So that's all I've got to say on that. I think Matty D should have been given another year with the Wood Brothers, but I understand why the Wood Brothers decided it was time to move on. He's in Team Penske equipment and he's not winning races. At the end of the day, if you're not winning races, unfortunately, it doesn't matter your popularity. You gotta go. I mean, there are guys still, in top equipment, if you can't win, then you gotta go. I mean, if you have the backing, then fine. But I mean, on the money side as well, I mean, Harrison Burton brings in Dex Imaging, I believe it is. And I know Menards is going to back a handful of races too, probably still. But again, I still scratch my head and I'm just like, I wouldn't even call this a lateral move. This seems like a downgrade because I just don't think Harrison Burton was ready for the Cup Series. And I say the same about Justin Haley. So before you criticize that, and yes, I like Justin Haley, but I just don't think he's Cup ready yet. Granted, it's a brand new team. Now, here's the thing. Where I can defend Justin Haley going to the Cup compared to Harrison Burton is Justin Haley is going to a ride that's probably going to be mid-pack next year. It's going to be expected to be mid-pack and not running for wins. Put it on the flip side, you've got Harrison Burton, who's going from a top-tier ride in the Xfinity Series, hasn't put up the results this year, into a top ride with backing from one of the top teams in the sport. That's where I say it's a slight downgrade. So I just don't know about this. I just don't think it was a great move. Now, the reason I rushed through this is, of course, probably in the next 2 weeks, we're going to get a lot of news on the off season. We're going to get a lot of news regarding who's going to be where this off season. So with that, because we may see more bombshells over the next 2 weeks, let me show you my top 5 free agents exiting the 2021 season. I will actually step out of the way for a second. Let me step out of the way, guys. I'm actually going to pull my microphone with me. So, of course, we start out with Kurt Busch. I got to move this up just a hair. Sorry, I'm going to block Kurt Busch's face for a second. So, of course, the reason I have him number 1 is he has the Monster Energy backing. He's won the last 2 seasons over at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's also got that veteran presence. But the big problem is his age. He's 42 years old. Does the team want to take a chance on that? That's the big question. Let me turn off the other graphic. My apologies. I'm still getting used to all this. Alright, just so my face isn't cut off here. So then we go on to number 2 on my list, and that is Matty D. Oh my goodness, I'm flopping all over the place. My apologies, guys. I've never done this with the green screen, so bear with me. Number 2 is Matty D. Now, the reason I have him number 2 is he's put up results in his time in a winning car. So, of course, he made the playoffs last season. He beat out a 7-time champion to make the playoffs. That is why I have him number 2. And don't give me the Jimmy Johnson was out a race with COVID. he probably still could have made it even if Jimmy raced or even if Jimmy didn't get COVID. So don't give me the whole spiel about how Jimmy got COVID and that's the only thing that saved Matty D, because Jimmy had an awful year last year as well. Okay, let's not forget that. Um, he's had a career best 2 seasons over there. He's run for wins. He almost won Talladega. So, again, but almost counts only in horseshoes and hand grenades. So that's something that should be noted as well. Um, so then, of course, number 3 I've got, he's a fan favorite. That's another reason why I'd have no problem saying, put Matty D in my car, because I think he can win. Not just do I think he can win, it's the fact of the matter is fans like him. Fans like him. So that's number 3. But number 4, the issue is his sponsorship. But again, being a fan favorite, seeing how much I've talked about marketing here on Tinkle Sports, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But winning races is the biggest issue. He has not won a race in a car where he's had the best opportunities. So he's got to start making the most of it. And to be honest, he's a guy this season who has to win a race now. Okay, not just because there's only 3 spots left in the playoffs. It's because there's also he's got to vie for a ride next year. And if he doesn't win a race, it's going to be very hard to sell yourself to a team. So number 3 on my list is Michael McDowell. And frankly, this was a tough decision between 2 and 3, because Michael McDowell should have been number 2, just on the fact that he won the Daytona 500 this season. But of course, the big thing here is he's a road course ringer. He can run road courses too, just as well as he runs those super speedways. And the reason I put that number 2 is we're heading into a series now that is starting to really value the road courses. We have 7 on the schedule this year. We could have 8, 9, maybe 10 in the next few seasons. That's a possibility. We can't rule that out. But that is why I have him number 3. And then, of course, but the issue here with that is his age and his sponsorship. Again, he's a Daytona 500 winner. He should have no problem getting sponsorship, but that's something I can't rule out here. So then we go on to number 4, and that is Ross Chastain here. And I'm blocking his face again, so let me move that mic up. I can block Matty D now. So the reason Ross Chastain is number 4 is he's having a career year in 2021. He's also outperformed his equipment. When he was at Premium Motorsports, when he was with Spire, he outperformed his equipment, which is why Chip Ganassi took a chance on him. So now we go on to the next part here. He ran pretty well on the road courses. He was running top 5, top 10, if I'm not mistaken, on the road courses. So he has the ability to run on those. Not to mention, he won at Daytona. He's won at Pocono in the lower series. He could surprise. I think he's a guy who could surprise. However, I put here, number 1, the sponsorship. Yes, he has the Moose Fraternity as a sponsor, and that's great, but will they back all 36 races? Maybe Nutrien jumps to the Cup level to back him. I don't see that happening, though. So then, of course, what's going to happen with Clover? What's going to happen with the Chip Ganassi sponsors? Are they going to stick around? That's the other thing. And then, of course, the big thing here is the driver reputation. Of course, he's angered a lot of guys. He's angered Kevin Harvick. He's angered Kyle Busch. He's angered a lot of the top guys in the sport because of how aggressive he drives. That's one thing that could hold him back. Now, number 5 was a tough choice, but I had to go with this guy, Ryan Newman. So, of course, just like Kurt Busch, he's one of the elder statesmen in the series. Not calling him old, he's just one of the older guys. So please don't imply it as I called him an old man. He's just old for the standards of the sport. but of course I highlight that veteran presence. That's the number one thing that I highlight, much like Kurt Busch. And then number two is he's a former Daytona 500 winner back in 2008, Team Penske's first Daytona 500 victory. So that's another reason I listed him there. That's another big selling point, even if it is just for a Daytona 500 ride. So then, of course, number three is he could have sponsorship that can come in. Maybe Oscar Mayer sticks around with him. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But of course, the big issue again is his age and then his retirement, likely. And then the other thing is his results. His results have not been good in the last few years. So that's one thing I think that deters teams from picking him up, to say the least. So with that, let's go on to the next thing. So of course, my most likely free agent destinations. So of course, let's start off with Kurt Busch in the number one there. So my top two destinations for him, I have 2311 as the number one destination because they want to expand to a 2-car program. And of course, they need a veteran driver to do so. So that's my main reason. Then, of course, Trackhouse is number two because, again, they just acquired Chip Ganassi Racing. I think with that, they're going to consider the two Chip Ganassi guys for the job. So for Matty D, now here's the thing. I didn't have room for Ryan Newman, but I'm assuming he's going to retire. So that's why I didn't include him in here. So for Matty D, I expect him to go to the NASCAR Xfinity Series to restart his career. I think he's going to pull a John Hunter Nemechek. He's going to go back. He's going to kind of get his career in shape. However, I wouldn't rule out him teaming up with Corey LaJoie at Spire Motorsports. I think that's a possibility. Sorry, I'm trying to move out of the way so that way you guys can actually see the screen. Let's do this. All right. So Spire Motorsports was number two on that list. Sorry. All right, Spire Motorsports number two. I also had JTG Doherty, but here's the kicker with this. This is all dependent on what's going to happen with Ryan Preece over there. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Preece. So that's why I have him over there. I don't think he's going to replace Ricky Stenhouse by any stretch of the imagination. So then we go on to Michael McDowell. I think he's returning to Front Row Motorsports. He likes it over there. He wants to be with that team. That's the main reason why I'm not even going to really discuss that. Ross Chastain's options, they're a little bit open, to be honest. Of course, I have Trackhouse as the number one because I foresee Kurt Busch going to 2311. Spire Motorsports is the second one because, again, he could pair up with Corey LaJoie. This could give this team... Here's the thing. Spire for Matty D or Ross Chastain could bring in fans because, of course, both drivers have a kind of decent following. But number three for Ross Chastain is the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I can see that being a possibility because, again, not many good Cup rides are left. But the most unlikely is JTG Doherty. I'm sorry, the second least likely, I think, is JTG Doherty again. He wouldn't have to bring sponsorship. That wouldn't be a big deal, although Moose Fraternity could be on the car with Kroger. That's a possibility. You never know. But I think the absolute least likely is this one, Colleague Racing in the Cup Series. Of course, we know Justin Haley's going to drive one of the cars full time over there. But what we don't know is who's going to drive the second car. Now, Matt Colleague could look at this and say, gee, Ross Chastain's available. We know we said Allmendinger's going to run some Cup races. Maybe there's a way we can work out a deal that he drives a third car and we have Ross Chastain and Justin Haley full time. That is a possibility. I think it's a low possibility, but nonetheless, it's a possibility. So those are my picks for those guys. As I'm going to slide back down here, sit back down at the desk. I apologize. If you guys couldn't see this, I'm going to post this on Instagram as well. So check out Instagram at Tinkle Sports. That's where you will find this screen. Both slides. So I apologize again if I stood in the way so you couldn't see it. I figured that was the best way to share it. Right behind me, put some use to the green screen. Anyway, so the next step here is Ernie Francis. He wants to go IndyCar racing next season in 2022. He had mentioned that in an interview. To be honest, if he runs full-time, I could see Dale Coyne Racing picking him up, maybe under the Vassar-Sullivan banner. That is a possibility. This is a tough one, honestly. I just don't know who would pick up Ernie Francis. Maybe Ed Carpenter Racing, but I think the pushback from Connor Daly's fan base and his sponsorship might not be too pleasing, to say the least. So I think those are his two prospects. Maybe the Indy 500 is a prospect with a better team. Maybe Andretti picks him up for it. Who knows? Maybe Dale Coyne with Rick Ware picks him up for a second car or third car. You never know. One driver who is under consideration from Dale Coyne Racing is Ryan Hunter-Reay. Of course, he is not under contract after this season with Andretti, and Andretti has already promised some driver lineup changes, which would include Ryan Hunter-Reay, because Ryan Hunter-Reay is not under contract. Herta and Rossi are the only ones under contract. Ryan Hunter-Reay could use a change of scenery. I can agree with that. And I think he would bring a great veteran presence to Dale Coyne Racing, much like Sebastian Bourdais did at one point. So I kind of like this move if it does happen. But we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Of course, he is by far the second top IndyCar free agent. I might release that next show when we return from our break. And of course, with that, we want to say thanks for watching. Of course, the big news again, there will be no show next week or next Tuesday or the Tuesday after. We will be on our Olympic break. Only Formula One is racing, and because of that, we're not going to have a show. If we only have to talk Formula One, it's going to be a 10-minute show. So we will have Tinkle Olympic Zone here, though, at this time. There's going to be another show here. It's going to be Tinkle Olympic Zone. It'll be next Tuesday, July 27th, and Tuesday, August 3rd, here at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tinkle Sports. Jason will be joining me for that, and we will be broadcasting with updates on the Tokyo Olympics. But right after that, we'll be back. So August 10th, we will be back. But again, so Tinkle Olympic Zone, next 2 Tuesdays coming up. Here on YouTube only. It will not be on audio, but Jason will be here with me as the co-host, so we can't wait to bring that to you, and we can't wait to cover the next 2 weeks of the Olympics with you here on Tinkle Sports and Entertainment. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you liked what you saw. Let me know what you thought of those free agent picks and those the other silly season stuff. Let me know what you thought about New Hampshire. Comment it below, and we will see you back here. If you're not going to watch Tinkle Olympic Zone or Tinkle Sports Talk, we will see you back here in 2 weeks.